continuing on with our program this afternoon, and I am handing over the MC baton. The MC for the auditorium for the rest of today will be Pipo Serrano. Pipo, do come over here and join me. I've had the pleasure of working with Pipo for 1, 2, 3, maybe even 4 Smart City Expo World Congresses. I'm thinking, Pipo, about what has changed for you. What have you seen change? Because I know you're into new tech. And also journalism and broadcasting. So those two things kind of go hand in hand. What have you seen that's different this year from previous years?
Well, I feel like, and we'll have that debate with our guest today, but I feel like we've been talking for many years about people-centric look at all the thing, and it looks like it is starting to be real. And the second thing that I presume it's quite interesting, and we will also talk about it, is that we used to be behind the trends. So now it's metaverse, everybody wants metaverse. Now it's AI, everybody wants AI. So from a very reactive way of behaving and from a very trendy way of behaving, and now it looks like we are realizing what the city needs, what the people need, and if that technology helps, great. But it doesn't have to be the end. It has to be only a solution to reach the same objective, you know?
Can you tell, I mean, this is going into sort of your journalist brain and tech brain as well. Can you tell something like AI, is that going to be transformative? Can you tell now?
I'm absolutely...
You'll be super rich if you could.
I'm absolutely sure that it will. It is actually being so transformative. The great thing, I presume, of AI is that it will give the power to the people for those special things. So in a way, this is like going back when we used to have someone making an amazing bed for us, and we would pay for that instead of for an automation of it. So there's going to be an IKEA mode of life making things, but we will value much more the talent of people, and that's great. So I feel like it's a good new starting point, let's say.
Right. And I'm thinking in terms of people around the world who all come to this expo and they're bringing their ideas. Is there a region of the world that you are looking at and going, oh, that is exciting?
Yeah, there's too much. We were talking about that also behind, and we commented with Femi. We are in an amazing Congress, stunning ideas, projects, but if you just walk over there, you'll see there is a booth of Japan, there's another one of Estonia, there's another one from Saudi Arabia. Every city, every place, every corner, every country has its own ecosystem, ideas, needs, evolution on terms of technology. So it sounds a bit weird for me to talk about one type of smart city. And I feel like that's quite interesting. And today we'll see 4 examples of very different 4 or 5 smart cities or smart countries and the way they do it.
Pipo, the stage is set.
Thank you very much, Femi. And I would like to ask my guests to join us in the stage, please. Welcome in Diana, Nabil, Janika, Jax, please join us. Let's give him an applause, please. Thank you very much. So, as we were saying with Femi, and we've been debating this for the last couple of days, pretty much. We know that according to OECD, by 2050, 70% of the population will live in cities, and by that time, more or less, we'll have a bit more than 9 billion people in the world. That means that cities will be even more crucial than now, and that's why cities are embracing several types of different technologies to make them better, more smart, and some emerging technologies that we'll debate, like computer vision, IoT, some, of course, AI. We will talk about artificial intelligence because they've got this potential to be life-changing in some key areas, in some very strategical sides or scenes, and we'll have very good examples on that. But we need to kind of have a look on technology, but above that, as we were saying with Femi, about citizens. And I've got like the feeling that even though every year we've been talking about citizen-centric cities, now we're really doing it, not only saying it. And that's great. I feel like I think I started joining this stage 7 years ago. I think it was in 2017 or 16, and this time I feel like it's really happening. And that's why we've got amazing citizens, amazing professionals, amazing people today in the stage with us, such as Diana Parker. She's at Microsoft. She's the worldwide public sector government lead. Thank you for joining us, Diana. Thank you. We also have Nabil Al-Nuaim. He's the Senior Vice President on Digital and Information Technology and founder, CEO of Aramco Digital. He's the Vice President of Aramco. Thank you very much for joining us. It's a pleasure. We also have today with us Ms. Janica Merillo. She's the advisor. Well, she's got lots of helmets here, lots of caps, let's say. She's a special advisor for the Estonian Ministry of Social Affairs, but she's also special advisor for the Deputy Prime Minister of Ukraine, I'm right? And probably many other things, but so far for today. And we also have Mr. Jacques Beltran. He's the Vice President from Cities and Public Services at Dassault Systems. Thank you very much for joining us. So the first thing I would like to do before we move on this topic that we're facing, which is a new era of tech-empowered cities, is to ask each of you to introduce yourself to the audience and tell us in a minute, how do you envision this topic from your perspective, from any project that you're facing, or from the side that you want, so that each of us can have a wider eye on how do you envision this topic. Diana, whenever you want.
Thanks very much. First of all, thank you for giving us the opportunity here today. It's wonderful to be able to talk to all of you. So at Microsoft, we think about smart cities in a number of different ways, and I think there's no single definition. And for us, it's really thinking about a kind of intentional use of technology to improve the environment and the lives of the constituents, be that citizens, be that workers, be that visitors to any given environment. And that might show up in an attempt to lower your CO2 emissions. It might be about improving the commute times, or really thinking about what your transportation infrastructure looks like. It might be helping your small and medium enterprises to really be able to scale digitally and scale globally. And it's about making sure that those outcomes are, as you said, people-centric. Because I think we've come from a place where it was technology first, and it was very much that I have a hammer and I'm looking for a nail, rather than actually consulting with your residents, but also with people who come into the cities for work, or with visitors, to really understand the challenges and the opportunities that technology could help address. And so for us in Microsoft, we think about how we can create that technology platform that's agile, that's flexible, that is compliant with regulation and policy, that's secure, that then allows you to tackle the different problems. And you may have heard that the Microsoft mission is to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. And we really think that fundamentally, that's the objective that our cities are trying to embrace. How do we really deliver the greatest outcomes?
Great, thank you very much. Nabil.
Maybe I'll talk about how Aramco really approached the smart city. We approach it in a way what we like to call it like enterprise architecture that has really several architectures, starting with the social architecture itself, the business, the needs of the people of a smart city, and also the needs of the business that are running these cities, which is the business architecture. And third is the technology, which is what digital and IT is doing to enable both the people need and the business needs.
Okay.
And this is what you have probably seen, whoever went to Saudi Aramco exhibit, and we've seen a lot of interactions. People were very surprised that an oil and gas company or energy company, we are investing in smart city. But the way we are focusing on it, really, when you talk about the people needs, about quality of life, safety and security, business about managing and reducing the cost, trying to provide the services in a very structured and cost-efficient way, but also addressing some of the issues that is facing the energy sector, or also the community, which is sustainability. So how do you really build solutions? And the technology, it really is just an enabler. So without having the people needs, the business needs, and the technology, and when you talk about technology, all about partnerships. So you partner with big companies, like Microsoft, and some of the system integrated, but also we have our own IT infrastructure in terms of connectivity, computing and building solutions. So it's like a comprehensive. Maybe the best way is we think about it, since we are a big enterprise, like an enterprise architecture, thinking about it in a structured way. And this is really a very unique way of really addressing a smart city needs, especially by a company like Aramco.
It's very interesting, and we will face afterwards an example from Aramco with a real city that's already connected, so we'll learn pretty much more about that. Today I would like to face this session starting with what is really today a smart city for our guests, to see how can we make it happen, and to analyze which are the benefits of it, but also the risks. And afterwards, maybe if we have time, we'll talk about the future. But this is pretty much the way I would like to envision this. Janika, tell us a bit about your first approach. I don't know if your mic is
Yes,
working.
my mic is down.
We have two for you.
That's fine. So in Estonia, I think Estonian government and Estonian cities are very technology driven. So basically, our approach is to be people-centered yet data-driven. And by people-centered, I don't even mean people like masses, it's more like person-centered. And we have actually, let's say, been trying to reach this next level, meaning that it's not about people as mass, it's about personally you. That what the healthcare in the city can do for you, personalized medicine, the personalized education, how it can approach your needs the best, a personal transport, why not, that how you can reach from A to B the best way, especially by your needs. So actually we've been working about this technology implementation as an enabler to serve as a good concierge your needs. So government needs to be not only like automatized and technologized, but also personal. And all the new technology we're implementing, AI, blockchain, all the solutions are basically to serve each and every person's need. This is our new approach, let's say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Janika. And Jax, I would like also to listen to you now and afterwards much more, because the way you get like closer to the needs is very interesting. Give us a bit of flavor on it, please.
Sure, people. Thanks for inviting me to join. Going back to Diana, you said earlier that digital twin definition is very wide, and I 100% agree with you. I mean, you could have as many definitions as there are people in this room. The way we address the digital twin, and specifically city digital twin topic, is by defining it as a 100% accurate replica of the real world. So it is a science-based model of the real world that is used to, in the virtual world, try and improve the real world. That's what we do. Why do we focus on that approach? So that's particularly useful for urban planning, of course, or for looking at all the what-if scenarios that can impact the quality of life of citizens in the city. But why do we want to insist on that? Because you may know that Dassault System started actually in the manufacturing world. We have a history in aeronautic, in automotive, in the solid industry manufacturing. And think of this, in the aeronautic sector or in the automotive sector, you don't do crash tests anymore. You do virtual crash testings. And authorities homologate planes or cars with virtual crash testing. They give the same scientific value to virtual testing than they do to real testing. In the life science sector, which by the way is our second sector of activity, life science, we are testing drugs, medical equipment on virtual human bodies.
Absolutely.
You're not doing that on patients, you do it on virtual, and then you make sure it works for patients. Guess what? When it comes to cities, most cities are still doing real crash tests on citizens, right? They want to change road trafficking conditions, they want to bet on the next flooding. They know flooding happens every year, right? But every year we test a different way of mitigating that risk. Virtual testing in the city can also work. That's what we do with digital twins.
That's so interesting. And afterwards, I would like to explain us how do you match so many parameters all in one? Because I was interviewing a guy in the radio some couple of weeks ago, and they do exactly what you said: a digital twin of your herd.
Yeah.
And they kind of analyze herd diseases by analyzing each digital twin. So it's interesting to see the whole body. Right. But not of a person, of a city, which is even powerful. One thing that Diana started pointing out, which I think it's key, it's what is a smart city? We are all here, but probably if I ask each of you what is a smart city for you, each of you would bring us an excellent and interesting, a different definition. What is a smart city for each of you? Or how do we make, what makes a city smart, sorry?
So For us, it's really about figuring out what you're trying to solve. And then how do you intentionally apply technology to that? And that technology might be things that your citizens never see, and most of our technology we don't want our citizens to see because it's messy and it's dirty and it's too complicated. So, but it might be smart lighting. So in the city of Valencia, as an example, they've used smart lighting to improve not only their CO2 emissions, but to make areas of the city safer, to guide people to certain areas. Or it might be about noise abatement and actually being able to project messages onto a street. And in this particular case, there's a university area and a recreation area, and in between is residential. So you get lots of, let's say, boisterous students moving around late at night. So just using nudging through projecting messages on the street. This, Annie, who's 3 years old, is trying to sleep, and they've found really great results from it. So I really think a smart city can be any, or at least, a smart city is probably never finished, actually. It's probably taking each of those component pieces and addressing the challenges and opportunities that face you. And I think it really depends what's important. I mean, your example is a very holistic one. But I think it can be, how do we reduce the time it takes to issue building permits? So that as an authority, there's an example in Canada, in a small city, I think we talked earlier, is this only applicable to enormous cities with massive budgets? And the answer is firmly no. This is absolutely the way technology has changed. This is available to every size of city. And Kelowna in Canada, it's 160,000 people. But they've reduced permitting time for building from months to days. And that means they can house people more quickly. So I think it's getting to that human outcome. The thing we want is housing. And interesting, they use digital twins as well as part of that to think about what's the impact of this building, and therefore should we approve or not approve. And then you can apply artificial intelligence to help your staff to make those decisions, more informed decisions, and to make them more quickly. So I think it can be many, many things, but it's the intentional application of technology to solve a problem or take advantage of an opportunity to improve quality of life.
It makes sense, and I will ask you something else, but Nabil, let me ask you, because we're all mentioning without explaining enough your project. For those of you who are not aware of this, there is already a super connected city that Aramco's been working in, which is Daran. Can you explain us a bit about that city, about how it works? What is this project about? And afterwards we keep on moving on the needs of all of it?
The people who will explain Dhahran better than myself, they are in the first seat, by the way.
Okay, I don't know if we can all fit here, but we can maybe.
So, Dhahran is the headquarter of Saudi Aramco. Dhahran, where the first oil well has been discovered, it's called the Dammam 7. So it was basically a desert. And, in 20 years, this city has evolved into probably one of the smartest cities in Saudi Arabia. We have a lot of homes integrated with offices for people to work in, entertainment, all type of sports.
An exact city.
It's all in fact, the first even, and because I'm a golfer, the first golf course in the Eastern Province exists in this city. Just to imagine, how the city has evolved. But it has its own security operation, its own community operation, its own facility management, its own RO plant, its own, network of, water and gas and electricity, power generation, HVAC. Imagine it's evolved into a very, very fully integrated city. And the way we think about it, we said this is the city where we live, and we work and we play. So it is fully integrated.
Yeah, but how many people is living in that city, and how do you connect the people needs with the city services, or how does it work a bit?
You don't think about residential people and also the workers. So not all the workers live in that city, because we have a huge number of workers that they also go in the surrounding city. So when you talk about the number of people that will benefit from all the cities of Saudi Aramco, Dhahran is only, by the way, one of several cities we have that expand our operation. Talking about around 500,000, people that benefit from the services. So when you talk about the service, as simple as if you are a worker, you don't live, if there is something that you need in the office, you go to an application and just submit, and the maintenance will come and support you and help you. If you need even a conference room, it's part of an integrated platform, part of what we call the city brain of Dhahran. If you are a resident and something breaks, you can also do the same thing. We have also integrated application for healthcare, which is, we have also our own hospital in the city. I can't speak probably for hours.
No, because
so I want to go there.
But it's interesting to have a first approach on it, and I'll ask you more things. But in that sense, you were describing some city needs that are pretty connected to what we were saying, depending on the smart city or the city that needs some services. I don't know, Yannick, from your point of view, how do you have a correct approach of those city needs? Because I suppose that the needs of Dhahran are probably not the same that you can have in a city in Estonia or Ukraine. So how do you evaluate those needs?
Well, I do think that basic needs are very much the same. It's about basic human needs, and I think actually smart city is where you have maximum happiness index without noticing it. Meaning that basically all your needs are met and covered before you even feel or see it. So basically the best smart city runs so smoothly that you don't even have to think about how it's running. For example, that all the databases of city are connected, you only provide your information once, you don't have to go around with papers, provide different documents and so on. You don't notice it even. When your child is born, it's automatically registration, whatever is needed for subsidies and so on, you don't notice it, you don't think about it. For example, when you need to get to work, you don't think that when is the next bus coming, where it's stopping, because you're guided by, I don't know, your smartwatch, which is saying that get out now because it's the fastest way, and you use basically a smartwatch or single ticket to drive in subway and so on. So I think the best city is when you don't have to think about the technology, that it's enabling so well that it doesn't even bother you, it helps you without being an issue. Also, all of this AI, for example, we use AI in Estonia pretty much in healthcare, and in healthcare, doctors use very much AI in decision support. For example, patient comes to a visit, and the doctor is when it's prescribing a prescription, the AI has recommended what is the best solution, and doctor just confirms it. And patient doesn't know it's AI. Patient doesn't even notice it's AI. It's just working and smoothly and seamlessly. So I think this is the best smart city.
I can see that they all are willing to talk about technology also, so how they can make it better. So let's get into the how. How do we make it, and which are the benefits? And I will ask you also, you are so well-mannered. I mean, we're doing it very in order, but if you want to interrupt, we can do it. I mean, these people is here to see a bit of action, so no worries on that. But Jax, and I'll do like the second round, and then we can jump. If we get like the hands into the mood and we start working on tools and technology, you said digital twins, and I was talking about different city needs. The way you draw with that virtual Paris or Dhahran, would it be the same, or you draw it in a different way?
No, and you're right. When you're talking about digital twins, you have to start by talking about the use cases. What does it serve for? Because building a digital twin just for the sake of having a smart city doesn't mean a lot.
Exactly.
So let me give you 3 very different examples of projects that we've been doing that are going to illustrate these different use cases. Next year, Paris will be welcoming the Olympic Games.
Yeah.
And we have 100% typical French political debate going on. Because the city of Paris has decided to reserve 1 lane of the ring road for car sharing. 50% Parisians thinks it's a great idea, 50% thinks it's the worst idea possible. Well, we decided to bring science into that, because there has not been a serious impact study about that measure. So we did, and I think it's the first time I've seen that, a triple simulation of traffic, noise, and pollution, playing various scenarios of that decision in one single digital twin, which completely changes the debate. The debate is not are you for or against that decision, is what are the conditions for that decision to be successful. Changes completely the picture. Second example, I cannot mention exactly which city, but somewhere in Asia.
Somewhere in Asia.
That'll give you a clue. Somewhere in Asia, a city came to us and said, look, we have had a couple of years ago a very dramatic accident in a road tunnel where three people unfortunately died because of flooding. After that event, that accident, whenever it was raining, they were closing the tunnel, creating massive traffic congestion. And what they're struggling now is knowing exactly what is the point at which you actually have to close the tunnel because it's becoming dangerous. But not too early, otherwise you're creating unnecessary traffic jam. That's a second use case, directly related to climate change conditions, so impacting many situations. And third example, which you will be sensitive to it, I guess, we're working in Ukraine right now with authorities of the city of Chernihiv. Chernihiv is a city of more or less 200,000 inhabitants, northeast of Kiev, that has been severely hit by bombing at the beginning of the war. They have asked us to do two things with digital twin. First, do an automatic AI-based assessment of damage, leveraging satellite imagery to automatically detect the areas that have been bombed, detect if it's a building, an infrastructure, and start doing a priority order of reconstruction. And second, while, as you know, unfortunately the war is still raging, engineers of the city of Chernihiv, with our partners Aegis and Dassault System, are actually working on the initial master planning of the reconstruction of Chernihiv. This is the power of virtual twin. The war's not over and people are already thinking of the reconstruction to build Chernihiv better than it was before the war. Three very different examples, as you see, but all that is the power of digital twin in times of crisis, like in times of peace, to just improve the future of cities.
Super interesting. I think Annika was, you were asking me you wanted to contribute on that sense.
I just wanted to add one more layer about data-driven decisions. That, of course, to be able to run things smoothly, you need to have database decisions, and actually it was a very good example about Chernihiv. And also, for example, Ukraine is now using AI in large scale to evaluate the situation on ground so we can assess better the needs, starting from, yes, the destruction analytics, basically how many apartments, houses are destroyed all over Ukraine, so we can project and evaluate how much resources are needed and where and so on. So definitely when we're talking about the smart and people-oriented cities, we need to have data to make these decisions. So it's very much about also big data, being able to analyze and systematize and make decisions based on that.
Okay, this is starting to work. Diana, and afterwards Nabil. You see now it's starting.
Yeah, there were two things there that really struck me. One is absolutely foundational to any smart city is data. And it's figuring out what data you already have, and then what data you need, and how you can go about gathering that. And I mean, digital twins is a beautiful and very tangible example of how you can then render that in a way that allows people to interact with the data in a completely new and different way. And having a conversation with your constituents where you can actually show them a model is so different than, you know, a bunch of architectural diagrams on an enormous sheet of paper. It really brings it to life, and I think allows for different conversations. But the other is this notion, and this is very new, and it's something we're just kind of starting to play with. The other is this notion of a social twin.
Okay.
So how do you start to map not just the physical buildings, but the communities that you have? So where can you start to pinpoint communities that are maybe most vulnerable or need particular kinds of support? And so it goes beyond just traffic management and crowd management, but you started talking about resources. So where do you deploy your resources and when and how? I was talking to a customer last night and they're starting to say, okay, safety in the streets is one thing, but how do we start to think about safety in the home? How do we start to address domestic violence as we're thinking about smart cities? So really starting to really drive that notion of and I love you going from people to person.
Yeah.
The person, that very specific individual. How do we make their quality of life better, regardless of the dimension? And that's something we're just starting to play with some...
We'll talk about that afterwards if we have time also, because that is connected to another thing, data protection, people's protection. I mean, we cannot map everything probably. Nabil, you wanted to add something else?
I would like to mention, you know, smart city has also very important applications, especially during the COVID. So Saudi Aramco, one of the things we have done two applications. One is safety related, where people that don't have to get their IDs, it's all digital identity basically, which is very unique. And also my community. How do you really control the traffic going to the beach or going to, to the gym? So these are the smart city application. It may sound trivial, but imagine if you have a huge city and you would like to manage how many people go to the grocery store. So integrating, the safety and the operators of the facility is extremely important. This is one example where also AI was part of it in order to guide how do we really manage the operation, but the focus is on the person himself, on the security, safety of the individual, and this is something very important. The other item is about digital twin.
Okay.
So we have this picture. When we say digital twin, it's like we have to have a replica of the building, 3D model. The concept of digital twinning, you can twin a process, not a building. So in the Dhahran city, we have a lot of digital twin centers. So a digital twin for the hydrocarbon movement, where decisions are made, for almost 10% of the hydrocarbon globally. It's in the city, but it's a form of a digital twin. Supply chain. If you look at the supply chain, we are buying billions, tens of billions of dollars of materials and services. We just formed a center we call the digital twin of supply chain, which is basically integrates whatever the data, with the decision making that people have to make, whether you are during the planning, during the supply chain, or in the procurement, or in the warehousing and inventory management. It's a digital twin form for supply chain for a huge operation.
It's so interesting, but I wonder if, Jax, if you can help us to understand, when you create that digital twin, does it match exactly with the effects also in terms of benefits that you can have in terms of energy or, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, I really wanted to echo what Nabil and Diana were saying about the power of digital twin in transforming organizations.
Okay.
When you set up a digital twin so that your different departments of the municipality look at a city through the same view, aggregated data, you're not only improving the operational capacity of these departments, you're completely transforming the way your municipal organization is working. You are breaking silos, because that data, most of the time, is all separate in different departments.
Absolutely.
First thing. Second way it's transforming is what Diana pointed out when you were mentioning citizen engagement and the power of 3D digital twin in sharing with citizens your vision of the future for the city. For those of you who have time, actually, we have a booth there. We've created at the very opposite on the right. We have a immersive virtual reality experience of a city where a mayor, you can imagine mayors sharing with citizens various use case scenarios, reducing speed in the city, how is that going to impact air pollution, etc., various use cases. The beauty of it is that the digital twin that you create for operational reasons can actually be turned into a very powerful political communication instrument. It's the same digital twin. Have you ever thought that a communication advisor to a mayor could actually be working on exactly the same solution as the urban planning department? I mean, it seems like these are two opposite functions in the municipality. They're working on the same solution.
But let me ask you something, and I want also to ask something to Diana, but do we have enough data of the city to create that twin?
That's the number one question we ask our potential customers. And I tend to say to customers, there's no purpose in you buying a Ferrari if you don't have either the petrol or the electrical battery.
Exactly.
Otherwise, it's going to stay in your garage. It's a very nice Ferrari, but you'll never be using it, right?
You need to feed the brain.
Yeah, you need the data. And very often, I would say that's the number one roadblock our customers face. The data is not ready.
Okay, Diana, no, I wanted to ask you, we also mentioned artificial intelligence. I know you work hard on that and you're very good at that. Can you bring us a couple of projects, cities where you worked with it and the benefits?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, digital twins is a great place to start, actually, because artificial intelligence really is only as good as the data that you're supplying it. Now, generative AI, a little different, but I don't want to get sort of sidetracked by only generative AI, because AI has been around for the best part of a decade in some form or another, but in a pretty robust form. And so that notion of artificial intelligence and machine learning, I think
Yeah.
is really valuable. If you think about something like the city of Tampere, they're using digital twinning to say, well, look, we've got 3 bridges that we need to replace. In what order do we replace them? When do we replace them? What's the optimal route for traffic? Actually, it's artificial intelligence that's calculating a lot of those things and can start to be predictive. And I think this is a really important aspect of smart city. You were asking for definition before. I think in some sense it's about going from being reactive, so like you said, responding to an emergency, to being proactive and predictive. So being able to say, given the current weather conditions, given the concert that's being held in the stadium, given the fact that we've also booked a football game at the same time, and by the way, the planes are delayed because of the snow, here's what that's going to mean for traffic. Here's, therefore, you should be putting on more taxis in this area, more buses in that area, more. And artificial intelligence is the thing that has the scale to reason over that massive load of data. And your question about do you have enough data? I think it's surprising how much data is already there.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I was speaking
People used to say a lot of big data, but not that much of good data.
Yeah, exactly. Data but not organized.
Without doubt, you have to make sure that what you've got is robust and really generates the answers you want. But I was speaking to, I met with TomTom yesterday, who are a partner of ours, and they have 12 years worth of traffic data, particularly across Europe, that we're not really using efficiently and effectively today because it was gathered for a very specific purpose, and that purpose now can evolve. And it's finding, I think, often the sources of data that already exist, to your point, the very siloed nature of data. And I think AI is a catalyst, it's a turning point for governments to recognize now is the time to bring your data together. Now is the time, in many ways, to get out of your own way. To ensure that regulation is appropriate so that you can maximize the value of data and through that improve the quality of life for your citizens.
Interesting. Yannicka, you were asking.
Yes, I think actually the quality of data is one of the issues that AI can help to tackle again. Because from one side we have a load of data, yes, but then again in healthcare the AI can analyze the context and can analyze much better than people in regards to. For example, I mentioned the personalized medicine. What we do is we feed the data of patient record, of genomics data, and AI is very much able to make sense of it, meaning to pick and understand the context and have the outcome. Then again, when we don't have the data, it's all about AI again, because it can generate data. For example, in investigating the rare diseases, in analyzing rare diseases, we don't have the data, but we can generate the data. So it's again about technology's enabler and how to use the technology in order to make sense of it.
Let me ask something to Nabil, and afterwards I go to you, Diana. When talking about these city brains, you mentioned it before, you've got like a SaaS, a software as a service, you call it smart city as a service. Which benefits have you realized you can bring to cities like Durham since you have a kind of brain analyzing energy, water, people, and everything? Can you give us a couple of insights on that side?
You know, the city brain really benefits the people, the business, and also some of the areas that are of interest, like sustainability as an example. Just to give you a simple example how we have orchestrated the traffic within Dhahran city using the city brain. We typically have a shared car services that we managed to reduce the number of cars by 20%. Using, analyzing all this data from the city brain and translate into 35% reduction in the, greenhouse emissions. So this becomes like a reference for any city in the kingdom. The more car sharing or carpooling, and you can restructure the way you do highways in order to reduce, the emissions. So this really benefits the people, benefits the business, but also benefits one of the targets.
And we were saying before, let me ask you another thing about these city brains. Can you export that the same way we were saying that the digital twin has to be the one for Barcelona or the one for Paris for that need specific? Does your city brain can be exported to other cities?
From a technology point of view, yes. The way we look at it, there are 5 things. It's all about making sure you have, computing, so connected to the cloud, or you have your own, IT infrastructure. Connectivity. Do you have connectivity to the IoT devices, whether power meters or water for irrigation, or any IoT that to manage the city? But also what type of digital solutions that you need to integrate. So once you use the right infrastructure in terms of compute and connectivity, you will be able to integrate. So data and AI that has been discussed, it becomes easy because you are unifying the network. But also not to forget, and this is what we do in Saudi Aramco as well, City Brain also considers what we call digital trust, cybersecurity. How do you make sure that the data is secure, whether data for people or, especially if there is linked with operation.
That's perfect, because we've got 6-7 minutes left. I didn't want to spend a lot of time on the risks, so I don't want to bring this creepy side on the audience, but there are risks. We were discussing before with the coffee, and we were saying that everything that seems to be a benefit can be also a risk, because the more connected it is, the more holistic, less silos, more connected, more cloud, more general, can also be attacked in a more general way. And Diane also brought up some very interesting points when talking about the zero trust. Can you share a bit with us? How do you approach to cybersecurity, to data, to respecting the people?
Yep. And I think that there's a couple of different things here. So that there's cybersecurity, and I think we're all aware of just how enormous the challenges are that are presented by cybersecurity today. And Nabil mentioned the cloud earlier, and without doubt, it is more secure to be in a hyperscale cloud today. And to give you an idea about why that is, apart from resiliency, which is obviously a massively important topic, Microsoft deals with 65 trillion signals a year. And that gives us incredible insight into what's happening in the world. We work with federal agencies to bring down both nation-state actor and cyber criminal gangs. So the scale that we have, a $20 billion security business, 10,000 security architects and experts within Microsoft, just can't be replicated by any individual government or commercial organization. So you get the power of that, but as you say, at the same time, you have to consider the implications. But just before I move on to that piece, the other thing I wanted to bring up, and I don't want to lose, is we shouldn't just hand control over to AI, because there's this perception, well, now AI can do it, we'll have AI. AI will automatically bring the barriers down on the bridge at a certain point in time. That's not our view of AI. It's very much about making sure not only is it responsible and ethical, but where you're dealing with those critical decisions, where it's a life or death decision, if it's something that could have significant impact on someone's quality of life, that there's a human being in that.
Absolutely.
That there's always the ability to hit the off switch. That you don't just go ahead and allow an AI program to make decisions about financing, about who gets loans and who doesn't, without being really confident that you've built in fairness, inclusivity, accessibility, that you can be accountable for the decisions that are made. And I think it's incredibly important you have that aspect, as well as a pure cybersecurity and privacy. But you asked about zero trust.
No, it's interesting. And Yannick also, and we also discussed that before, there is a parallel debate before this session, always. But talking about the way you approach, for example, talking in Estonia, the way you approach the data and the information and the respect for the people and also the cybersecurity. Give us a bit of flavor on it, please.
Yes, just addressing the comment about AI and control, we very much agree that person has to be still in control of AI. And for example, in healthcare, the person always makes the last decision. That AI can advise, can suggest, recommend, but the person is still in control. But in Estonia, yes, really, Estonia was the country that faced the first world cyber war in 2007, and it understood how important it is not to just have the e-government and e-solutions, but to keep them up and running, because they become dependent on the solutions and their own on all the time, let's say. And of course, we faced it again in 2024 in Ukraine when the large-scale war started, and we woke up to understanding that all the systems might be down and how we will serve our people then. But, and this is why actually Estonia, for example, has developed, let's say, a two-layered approach. One layer is that it's extremely important to have a maximum level of cybersecurity. It's understandable. We do lots of programs in regards to NATO Cyber Center, cyber range trainings and so on. But another aspect is that you have to have trust also between the government and people, meaning that if government does have this big pool of data, if government knows everything about you, then you have to also be in control of how it is used, why it is used. And for example, in Estonia, you can control everything the government does with your data. You have the log file, and you can see that who accessed your data, based on what, and did he have any legal basis for that. But you can also have this opt-out mode, which means you can turn out your data to certain doctors, for example. Maybe you don't want all the doctors to see all your diagnostics. Maybe you don't want, I don't know, your private practitioner to see some rare diseases or so on. So you're not only controlling of who accesses your data, and data has, of course, different layers of access and permissions, but you also control of whether I want to be seen and how my data can be used.
It's interesting. I wanted to ask Jax, and afterwards to all of you, in a very quick wrap-up. When you do that, when you design, when you have that digital twin of a city, do you also consider cybersecurity, security, data, and all these effects? And the second thing, also connected to digital twins, but to any technology, to any approach, does this work for any city? Or are we talking only about those big super cities? No, big size, mid-size, small cities, municipalities?
You're in my brain. This is exactly the direction I was going for in my answer. Is that we've seen along the past years the average size of cities concerned by cybersecurity go down dramatically. Okay. It used to be a problem only for national governments, and more specifically security or defense. Then it became general for all national government departments. And then it was only big cities. And now very small cities are rightfully so concerned about cybersecurity because some of them have been attacked. You have tiny hospitals in tiny cities that have been completely disrupted by cyber attacks, in France, for example. So that's an issue for everybody. Having said that, there's an adverse effect to that, is that it seems to me that the public sector in all major countries and even small countries starts to behave saying, oh, this is a matter of national sovereignty. So there's sort of a silo effect. Every country or even every city thinking that they have to master their data sovereignty themselves on their territory. They will not trust a company coming from another place. But that's something weird. How much do you think data sovereignty is important for Boeing? Boeing has been working with our technology, a French company, for the past 30 years, trusting us in our capacity to protect their data. So I think the public sector should also look how the private sector is managing sovereignty of data. And if the private sector is doing that, think about Aramco. I mean, how important is data for Saudi Aramco? Nabil, you can tell everybody. Trusting companies and technology provided by companies, irrespective of whether they're national, I think that's the way to do it. Because otherwise we're again creating silos in technology, and that's not a good sense towards innovation.
Super interesting. I don't know if you want to wrap up. We're out of time. Any other small, quick consideration, each of you, if you want?
And one about the AI part. Everybody talks about AI. You know, and probably people they don't know that oil and gas have been using AI for quite some time, for decades, in fact. You know, imagine when you drill, you have to find the sweet spot. If you do mistakes, it costs a lot, you know, to miss it. So we've been using these algorithms, but there is the trick that the oil and gas, especially Aramco, is a leader in this. Every algorithm, it has to be auditable. You know, you have to be able to audit every, piece of data. So if there is data poisoning, you will discover it. If there is a data, algorithm that is, is being planted, for doing something harmful for a decision maker, you have to find it. This is exactly what we are doing in most of Aramco Data AI program. for the rest of the operation. So any algorithm has to be auditable. I think it's very important whenever we talk about AI.
Absolutely. And I think, okay, we will wrap up with this. It was great listening to all of you, as all of us knew this was going to be too short. We could extend double time, but I want to thank you very much to Diana Parker from Microsoft, to Nabil Al-Maim, Aramco, to Yannick Amarillo from Estonian, Ukraine representing, and Jax Beltan from the Soul System. Thank you very much for your time and for your knowledge. Thank you. And we are going to do a quick pause now so that you can just work a bit, have a quick lunch or something, and we'll be back on this main auditorium stage. Thank you very much. Thanks.